Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Moorhead, otherwise known as Jackson. I'm finally getting around to getting my YouTube channel kicked off, and I first want to give a wholehearted apology to all the 285 people who've already subscribed to my channel, yet there is no video for you to watch or hopefully be entertained by. So I've kicked my own butt to get around to finally do it amongst my busy schedule, which I certainly do have one of. So I've been trying to figure out how to get around that, my way of making a living, and squeeze in these videos. I've been finding out more and more that people have a strong interest in me producing. So here we go. Now, I first would like to say off the bat that this is all going to be very crude. I've kind of gone through this beating myself up mode of trying to figure out how to do this perfectly. My job that I do, I get a lot of windshield time. So while doing it, I've been trying to think about the how to's and what to do's and what should I's and what shouldn't I's and the whole nine yards. And the more people I speak to, I've reached out to get assistance on how to navigate through all this. One for one, they all fall back on just do a video and let it run from there. So here I am. Um, and I'm also going to try to do this. I'm not one to sit here and um, try to make this perfect in any way. I could almost care less about it, and I apologize if it becomes annoying through this. I will make myself a better presenter while doing this. I will learn all the little ins and outs and things to do's, not to do's. One thing I've already observed is what I don't have control over and the knowledge to have control of is the freezing of the video, yet the audio continues to come through clear in these recordings. So I will do my best to try to figure that out and gain more knowledge, and hopefully the video will always remain in sync with the audio and you don't find yourself going looking at the video like I did, wondering what's happening. I can hear you, but you look like you froze yourself in time. So, anyways, more importantly, um, I've actually been trying to get this done over the last few months, progressively. I really wish I'd had the time to jump on this and get to it a lot earlier. Um, and by the way, I'm hopeful that you don't hear a lot of the background noise. Something I have no control over is outside my window, which is where my computer is set up in my little office here, um, is a road that passes by in front of my house, of which I can't really control. So if I get a motorcycle or engine that goes by, as you hear, well, consider that part of the character of my videos. And hopefully none of it's too loud to drown out what it is I'm talking. I'm also trying to figure out, sitting here to make this interesting until I get an audience in which I can interact with. So I'm right now talking to myself, in essence, in a camera and a microphone. So, I guess it's just me. I'm probably way overly apologetic for any wrinkles in my efforts here. So I will just begin. I had come to realize over the course of some time that this whole Scientology Sea organization world, there's an undertone backbone to it all that if you may not realize it when while you're listening to it, but after you work your way through a number of these, you'll come to understand that the backbone of a lot of these stories have a security undertone to them. The reasons why these stories and situations and shocking little interludes in the Sea Org and Scientology that you hear about really are based off of the security factor in which Scientology and the Sea organization functions from. And what I mean by that is they don't do a damn thing in the public world, you know, outside of their enclosed fences and their closed doors, um, without a security concern or aspect being applied to it. Everything gets generated and done with a backbone of security attached to it. So if I'll keep it simple as an example, as if say they want to repaint one of the buildings or all the buildings at the international headquarters out in Gilman Hot Springs, San Jacinto, California, and they put together a plan on how much paint it's going to cost, you know, how much paint is going to be required, what it's going to cost, who's going to do it, how they're going to do it. They're not going to do it without a security plan attached to it. As ridiculous as that sounds, that is, I couldn't be more truer about how truthful that is. That's such a ridiculous aspect that even at the time that I was involved with such projects or things, I myself didn't even realize what was going on. And that spanned throughout my entire career in the Sea Organization. So having said that, um, even in today's videos that you see or stories that you hear about Scientology and the Sea Org, um, you're going to have, you can attach some sort of security aspect to what is being talked about. And I want to help hopefully fill in the history as to why that is, how that came about from my perspective, the way I saw it, the things I found myself becoming involved with, being asked to do, help create, help establish, and make part of the routine and make part of the inner workings of the Sea Organization at the upper levels of the church. Now, you're going to find a little bit of this about me, and I truly apologize because, like I said, this is non-scripted. I'm not doing this based off of some sort of thing that I put together and figured out. Eventually, I'll get better at it, but I apologize. I'm kind of humming and hawing. I have thought of many things I'd like to talk about, help tell you about, to help you better understand more and more of what Scientology and the Sea Org, more importantly, what the Sea Organization is, because I myself was more involved between Scientology, Dianetics, and the Sea Organization. My involvement had to do with the Sea Organization itself, at the upper echelons of the Sea Organization. And what I mean by that is, by default, I ended up being assigned to, from the point I joined, I quickly found myself by default, like I said, being assigned and become part of the upper structure echelon of the church. Now, I wasn't made a senior church executive official. I was just, like I said, by default, ended up getting assigned to assigned to the IMP base as a staff member of the IMP base. What I eventually ended up doing, my job that I was assigned was security, but I will get into that later. But more to my point is that I realize that there's a viewing public in today's times, the viewing public of anything and everything Scientology. There are those who have never been involved with Scientology and find these stories that me and my good friends tell you and convey to you, and you find interesting. I just lost my track of thought. So you're going to see this about my stupid ass self. So like I said, there's this viewing public this public who views these videos, who have never been involved, but find these stories and everything we talk about fascinating. And there are those who used to be part of it, and like me, no longer are part of it, and no longer like Mike and Amy and Claire and Mark and Aaron and so forth. um, who like to hear these stories to help bring better resolution to their own personal conflicts or troubles that you may have had. Uh, because that's kind of a different perspective in that it's helpful to hear this information because it kind of proves that you weren't batshit crazy. And I'm hopeful that, yeah, I'm 10 minutes in, so my little slip of the tongue is not going to get me a YouTube arrested. So, um, I find it constantly for myself very relieving to hear uh, these stories conveyed and relayed from their perspective and their involvement. Helpful to me to compare it to my actions and my involvement and the things I witnessed and was involved with. And I'll give a quick analogy or an example of that. In that my job in security, I started off as a security officer, just somebody who opened closed gates, checked on alarms, wore a uniform, um, was a storefront representation of the base to any passerbys that drove through Highway 79 that cuts through the heart of the property. So I was established to be one of those that interacted with the public. And, uh, from that perspective, I had to know a lot of the base staff. I had to get educated and trained on, well, not by my doing, but just by being put into security. I was um, trained on and informed of, well, more informed of first, then trained on the how tos of the adversaries, the adversaries of the Church of Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard in particular. Not anybody else other than initially the security concern was to protect that base from any attempts by external people, media, people, agencies to breach our perimeter, come into, or just even simply walk up and inquire about L. Ron Hubbard. There was no initial, this was back in 1982 when I first started security. Um, there was no initial directive given to me about if anybody asks for L. Ron Hubbard and Dave Miscavige, Jesse Prince, Vicky Azaran, Steve Marlowe, Mark Ingber, Mark Yeager, Guillaume Lacerf, any of the church executives, there was no direction to how to answer people on the outside asking me, the guard at the gate, about these people. It was all focused on L. Ron Hubbard. So that was back in 1982. Progressively over the years, that changed more and more, but only limited to RTC executives and particularly Dave Miscavige, which was kind of another aspect of how I came to know the man, the myth, the Applebox boy, Dave Miscavige. And quickly, I call him Applebox boy because I'll tell the story later. But um, when he started, uh, let's see, what would I say? When he started realizing the power that he gained by giving these executive briefings to the entire crew of the Imp base in one sitting, at one time there was 800 some odd staff there. So it grew over the years. So the more and more he got into it, the more and more impact he felt that he could have on people. So every time they would have these, it required him to stand up in front of the crew and at a podium. And I'll never forget, this is where I came up with this Applebox boy idea, was that um, when he would come into Massacre Canyon Inn, which is where we all would gather for these staff briefings, we would all stand at attention. So everybody in the room would stand up. He'd walk in from the breezeway. The room would be silent because one of the RTC members would say "attention," and being the militaristic, Navy environment that we lived in. It was all about officer respecting the officer on deck. So whenever a senior officer would walk in, not every time, but in Dave's time in this case, we would be instructed to attention, and everybody would stand up at once. There would be silence, and you would hear these footsteps. You could not see him walking in. You would just hear the cum, 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 cum. And funny enough, it happened so much enough that you actually could identify, as though you can identify, if you were listening to a bunch of recordings, you can identify people by their voice. Well, in this case, you can identify that was Dave by the way he walked. And so you can hear him walking. You could not see him. You couldn't even see the top of his head. And I'm only saying this because, as a matter of fact, it's just one of these things. I'm not saying to particularly pick on him, but it certainly does help bring relief to this, to what this little dude's done to my and many other people's lives. So I got no problem in conveying this little thing that I normally wouldn't do to another human being. But anyways, he would walk in, you hear him walking, clump, 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 and of course you can hear him traveling from the back to the front, and it would always end with a final clump, clump, where he would step up on the apple box that was placed on the back side of the podium to give more height to come up to match the level of the microphone at the podium. So that kind of became a little backbone trait of his that I witnessed myself. Don't know if many other people did. I'm sure they did, especially those who provided the apple box wherever he went, which was down the shrine in Los Angeles or at the base. But I realized Dave Miscavige required an apple box wherever he went, so thus the coined term apple box boy. I find that humorous. I hope you do too. Anyways, it's just relating stories like that. I bore witness to a lot of things at the Ant Base. A majority, if not most, if not all my time in this organization, especially at the Ant Base, I was always at the Ant Base. I never jaunted off to other other Scientology'S organizations around the world, other continents, other states, other counties, except were required for me to go for security. So like in Mark's case, you've come to see and hear about Mark and Mike's case in particular, and even Amy in this, their jobs required them to travel around the world, travel around down to LA quite often. Excuse me. Whereas me, I traveled around the entire base pretty much every day, all day long. If I wasn't in a fixed position on security watch, I was either on the rover bike, which I'll show you a picture later once I figure out how to be able to show you pictures while I'm doing this recording. Here's the little tricky things that I've learned to do. I can, let's just see. I thought I could do it just to show off a little bit, but anyways, I'm learning how to do this whole video thing. So back to the story. Again, I stay on the base, and I traveled around the entire base, either the buildings or on the property itself, or to the local neighbors that once lived immediately around the property at Golden Era, such as on Sublet Road, or across the street from the G units up in the hillside community that was there, and then further down the road all the way to the bridge to the east end of the property. So I got to know pretty much all 800, almost 900 base staff intimately. I got to know the locals intimately, those that lived right outside our perimeter. And I also got to know a lot of local community people, or just people from the local community, either by default or through my firefighting, because I became a volunteer firefighter, which is something I was quite proud of, very much enjoyed. And I'll get into my backbone story on that. But I got to know the Indians out at the Saboba Indian Reservation really well. I got to know a lot of there was key ones that I always knew, but I became um, like more people knew me before I knew them out in the reservation. I was always constantly shocked that it's like, oh, you're Jackson. When I would go out there and I would see Tito, who was one of the main Indians I had routine contact with, I come to find out that he would talk to them about me, and then they would eventually meet. It was just interesting how as you live life, I never, people who you've never talked to, you find yourself they knew about you before your first introduction to them. So, and then of course through the fire department, that is its own community in itself, a community of brothers and sisters as public servants, and we became good, close friends beyond social friends. So that spread throughout the entire county of Riverside from border to border. I knew a lot of firefighters all around. So as an INT-based staff member, my connections ran deep, really. I got to know a lot of the history of Gilman Hot Springs. I studied a lot of books. I studied books on the history. I spoke to people from the community about the history of Gilman Hot Springs, so on and so forth. So I feel I have a lot of good little tidbits to help fill the hole in to people who sit here and watch these videos from not only myself, but like I said, my other brothers and sisters, Mike, Mark and Claire and Aaron and Amy and Matt. I just think that it would be helpful to the listening public and viewers here to have a better understanding of what went on at the INT base. More so, just not just in Scientology in general, but I guess the perspective is what happened at the INT base, how things progressively developed into what you who've never been to the INT base see now. And I can give an example of that is, really short and simple, but basically when you would get in trouble as a Scientologist, and what I mean by trouble is a simple mistake, a showing up late to a scheduled event that you promised to be at. In today's world, it was just like, yeah, just don't do it again. In the Scientology world, that is a big no-no. You might as well have robbed a bank before you came and arrived late, because you arriving late is a lot more significant than you having robbed a bank. And that is a feeling as a Scientologist that you constantly live with, is the fear, this undertone fear factor I witnessed being generated and created at the INT base. And then it was for lack of other words, kind of caressed and molded on its best way of creating the fear needed for Dave Miscavige to be who he is. Because if there was no fear in the backbone of your average INT-based Sea Org member, you would become more aware of what is at play and what's happening. I'm hoping this makes sense of what I'm trying to convey. But what I bore witness to was the early days of '82. There was this more of this free thought, more independency. Everybody kind of shined in their own domain, from the David Mayo, when he was known to be the senior case supervisor, or as an example, or the director of the shoot crew, or the head of security, or security guard, or the head cook, or the groundsman, or the engineer, or property maintenance crew. Any of these staff members, they all shined because they had no fear. They did the tasks that they were assigned and asked to do, and took pride in it, as opposed to doing their jobs in fear, where they limited their creativity, their freedom of thought. Does this make sense? I'm hopefully, really hopeful it does. And if it isn't, through the course of this, kick your questions out. Ask me to clarify more specifically. But I'm hopeful that gives an idea of why I'm now arriving at my YouTube channel. Is I became aware of the fact that I was aware from my own at my own level of, and of course being involved in security, um, I had a lot to do with helping creating that atmosphere. If that makes sense. That's something I've had to live with and swallow. But more importantly, I think it's important for people to understand that over the course, at least of the time span that I was there, what I witnessed and how things grew into what they are today, and how they came down from the base and worked their way through the network of Scientology. And I witnessed it from the very top all the way down to the civilian Scientologists, the public Scientologists, um, out playing softball games, out at public events, at events. I was really shocked progressively. Like when I left the Sea Organization and I went to my first New Year's event or May 9th event at the Shrine Auditorium, I mean, I shook hands with the very public that had never been to the Ant Base, um, fearful of the very things that I saw started at the Ant Base that I never thought would make it down to the inner workings at the public level of why would they be so fearful? What are they fearful of getting in trouble for? It was really odd. I thought that was a sea organizational held at an upper, the higher up you go in Scientology, the harder the fall. So you can have more severe consequences to screwing up. That was what was portrayed to us. But having borne witness to this and come to see it full circle, progressively over time, I realized that I can play a value to these to you, the listening ears and eyes of the listening ears and the watching eyes of these stories of what it was like and why is it this way, why is Scientology in this fearful world. Now I do realize that this things were established, L. Ron Hubbard directives were established well before I got there, so I'm not going to try to tell you um, how the wheel was reinvented that was already rolling and at play before I got there. But I got to tell you, there were severe upgrades to this wheel and a lot of fine tuning that was done to this wheel by Dave Miscavige. And that's what I'm trying to help you better understand of what I bore witness to, what I contributed to, what I helped create. And, and then also up how and what I helped create up to the point I left, and knowing what I knew as an example that they don't change much. It's like there's a wall to be painted. The wall always existed, but the color of the wall just keeps changing, and that's one thing I want to convey is that as a Scientologist, when it's written by L. Ron Hubbard, that's the wall. It's set in concrete. It's a concrete wall, and adherence, guidance, and adherence to that policy, or by that policy, and adherence to that policy always remains as a basic staple action as a Scientologist and Sea Org member. The colors of the wall would change, but yet it was always the wall. And what I mean by that is the way people that got into trouble were dealt with started out kind of logical, kind of humane, if if there is such a thing in the Sea Organization at the Int Base. Humane. That's a real interesting word, because I'm gonna pretty much guarantee that certainly wasn't part of my vocabulary, and those Int Base staff never once probably became educated and aware of what humane means. But there, it was, if you got in trouble, your hand would be slapped. If you got Like if you wasted $20, um, you would be expected. You only had to do a quick set of ethics conditions, and you could quickly get through it and get back and not be concerned. You could get corrected and get back to your normal job. If you wasted $100, the severity of your trouble may be increased, and you may need to do 10 hours of amends and do 10 times more. But it was still, there wasn't a lot of pressure and judgment placed on you that, even though you did not sleep that night as part of your amends to make up for wasting that $100, um, staying up late at night is to do your amends eventually became nullified. It wasn't an accepted. It wasn't accepted as an enough amends to stay up all night and go help somewhere else to put in that extra effort to make up the damage you had created. And when you present it back to the group to get approval and acceptance back into the group, staying up late at night just became nothing. It just was, it was kind of weird because you kind of ran out of, presenting to the group, hey, I did this extra effort. I put this extra effort in to get back and fix what I had done wrong. And I just distinctly remember things like that of, now what do I do? Now what do we do? Now what do they do to make up the damage? It then became not staying up one night, but the more nights you could stay up and still stay on, do your normal job, and then be able to present that in your request to return to the group, and be upgraded out of the shithole that you found yourself in. The number of nights, well, okay, that's, God, he stayed up 2 nights. Okay, well, I think you did good, and people would sign off on your little proposal. I hope all this is making sense, because I feel like I'm just running around this chicken coop full of crazy information and just touching on small things. But I wanted to use that as an example, is that's the kind of things that I bore witness to. I helped develop and help create, and over the years, and I'm hopefully to eventually bring relief to people to understand what it was like. I mean, it's um just it's when I it's a little tip off when I sit here and find myself in a little lull. That's because a hundred things are popping in my head that I would like to tell you about, to help convey what I'm trying to say. So I got to take a moment and throw it in neutral, and then ease the clutch out and go back, start in first gear again. So uh, one thing I also wanted to convey is I call this the Int Base Yearbook. For those who know this book, this is the Scientology handbook, but I look at it as the Int Base Yearbook, like you would have from high school. Because you know what, I had a yearbook when I joined staff from my elementary school. And another story I could tell you about is how that I had all my personal belongings in storage at the Hollywood Inn, and there was a flood. Nobody frickin' told me. They just got rid of everything and frickin' chucked it all out, whether it was damaged or not. They threw all my personal belongings out in the trash. My baseball gloves, those things that your father or mother gave you when you were a child, that you didn't even realize at the time you wanted to grow up with, and enjoy and cherish. My trophies. I got this ABC Wild World of Sports banner my dad gave me from National Hot Rod Association days that he would be involved with down in California. And those banners like you see ESPN nowadays, or TV network banners that are posted along fences. Well, there was an ABC Wild World of Sports that my dad took from an event, a televised event he was part of back in the day, and gave it to me. And it was something that I pride. This thing was huge. It was like 8 foot by 8 foot, something like that. It was freaking huge. And I had it all nicely folded, and I purposely wanted to keep that. Anyways, they got rid of it. And that brings me back to my point, which is the yearbooks. I've even tried to find online how to get a hold of my elementary school, just to be able to reach out and say hello to my good old buddies back in school. But the Sea Organization Scientology did a great fucking job of erasing that capability. So this is my yearbook for me. And going through it, every picture in here is of an imp-based staff member. Oh, how ironic. I hope this shows it, but I just opened it up and, oh, Jesus, Louises. Anyways, guess who that dummy is? There's good old Mark Headley back in the day in one of the pictures. So, that's just kind of funny that I opened up to that page. But it's full of even the props in there were like that one had a cash register, and the cash register was taken from our canteen and brought to be used as part of the prop for the still shots for that book. So I remember when that whole thing was shot. I remember the cameraman that went around and did it. I was in one of them. That's a yearbook to me. Nothing about Scientology. I go through it to relive some memories and remember who was who, and the best I can. Not our volleyball events or the track meets or the high school dances, but just the staff that were there. So I plan on sharing information from that. Let's see. I made some notes here of stories. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking off camera here, but my assistant is out of the office for the day. So I'm going to do the best I can. Things I start remembering listening to Mark and Claire's and Mike's stories. And hope you've been able to hear me. I'm not blaring. But when I watch these videos from Amy and Mike and Claire and Mark, I find myself yelling at the screen because I'm going, hey, I have an answer to that. I have a backfiller. I can give more information. And be more of contributing to the stories at hand, because people throw questions out to them that Mike and Mark or Claire or Amy or Aaron can't necessarily answer, but I have information to be helpful to answer these questions. Let's see. Like when they were talking about Arthur Hubbard as an example, you may remember this. I was at the base when Arthur was at the base, and he was, I don't know whether he was staff or not, but he was at the base, and he blew for the first time. Maybe it was the first time that I was aware of. It was a big thing to do, and I got involved with Arch. This is well after I had already known him. Great guy. I really miss the guy. I considered him a personal close friend. I don't know how he thought it, but I certainly thought, because of our interactions, and I was a young kid, but he had a big impact on me as a person. And I'm just going to say as a side note, one thing that I have found in life, and this comes from me. I guess this is helping you understand who I am, in that I really enjoy good people in my life. And I deserve the good people that I recognize who are good-hearted, do good things, deserve to be acknowledged for that. And what I mean by that is, like Arch is an example. I don't even think the guy ever realized the impact he had on me, but I feel that he needs to know that. And I've never gotten to speak to him about it. This may be more of a one-sided effort. I just find it of great value that people walk around on the face of this earth, and they're good people. They like helping people. Most times they don't ever get told about the impact that they've had, except by seeing their smiling faces or their continued interaction with them throughout the rest of their life. When as an example of good friends, when you meet a person early on in your life in your younger years, such as school, And you create these memories that you're not even realizing at the time you're creating them. But as time goes on, these people become a great value in your life. You grow to love them, um, and you may not never ever have that sit down moment with them and get to tell them that. Um, so I've made it a point to reach out to those who really mean something or have meant something in my life. One time I did this. I actually flew all the way to Southern California, and you know, I really have to control myself because I may get a little emotional about it. But at the fire department, there was this gentleman named Tim. um, just respectfully, I don't intend to bring him into this, but maybe you're someone who knows Tim. Maybe to one of you listening or watching this knows Tim, but Tim, Tim meant a lot to me. I don't know what else to say. I'm not going to sit here and talk about stuff that you have no ability to relate to, other than in the fire world, this guy is a man of passion on a personal level, not as a just as a public person, but he genuinely loved people. He loved obtaining knowledge and being able to give it others and kind of translate it. If I had trouble understanding how to pick up a box is a simple thing, he loved understanding everything about that box and then being able to come around and help me better understand about that box and then how to deal with that box and then thus turn it into a simple box to build interact with. And doing that time and time again over and over, where he would go out of his way. He would never uh, take watching a TV program over taking the time to be able to come and interact with you and see the need of you to be helped. He would take the time to help you. And his passion when I would see him on calls, running 911 calls, and help me become a better me early on in my life as an imp-based staffer. We had nothing to do with Scientology. So again, I took the time down there. I went down there to see him. He was like, "Yeah, come on down and see me, and I would love to see you." I had no idea what he had in store for me, but um, wow, yeah, I'm kind of yeah, Tim. I know who you are. I can't speak highly enough of this guy. So back to my point. There was plenty of those folks in the fire service, by the way, and over time in these videos, I will take the time to to give a little tidbit about them or what these people meant to me, because I just think it's important. More importantly, back in the Sea Organization, why is Mike and Mark and Claire and Amy and Matt and even now Aaron? I didn't know Aaron when I was on staff, but why do these folks mean so much to me now? And like Tim, um, and Janice, Janice and Terry isn't a couple other examples. Mark Fisher, Jeff Hawkins. All these folks had their own individual impacts on me. um, when we were on staff, and I kind of recognized way back then that the imp base was composed of all these people, but there was a core set of people that made that place hum. And unfortunately, I got to witness those core people being extracted and removed from that. I mean, and you can feel that. I'm sure you all could probably relate that loss feeling when somebody that you work with or interact with is suddenly removed or taken away or moves on somewhere else. The place just ain't the same. And it will never be the same as it was when that person was around or those people were there. Well, in the Scientology Sea Org base world, it was a major impact, major change. Well, I guess I can only relate that major change from my perspective, because the imp base had this hum at one time, and that hum worked down to a lot of noisy noise. There was no sweet uniform hum. There was this squeaky wheel came about, squeaky, noisy, grinding, effort, undertone, noise, whatever you want to call it. It just all turned. It was like turned in an about face, and then even those that were left that were still good turned into bad nuts. So my having oh, okay, I'm going to get back to Mike and Mark again. Like I related with Tim, these people had major impact on me as an individual, and for that I will forever have love for them. Uh, if you ever want me to tell you, over the course of these videos, just kick it out there in your comments. I'm eventually going to figure out how to read those. Uh, but and then how to interact with them, because I don't know what to do now. I'm just doing this video. I'm going to upload it. But uh, I could speak easily a good 2 hours about each one of these people, about our interactions and why it is what they mean to me. So, and to this day, it shames me that geographics keeps us so far apart. And then those that I've even come to share the same level of love and admiration for, such as Leah is an example. And Leah Remini. I'm not. This is just another person in my life from my perspective. Um, but we all played in the same ball field. And she was never at the end. Well, actually, my mind doesn't tell me right now if she ever was at the base. She probably was, but nonetheless, our paths crossed many a times. None of us even realized what was at play at the time, but nonetheless, I want to use Leah as an example because uh, when I always knew she was part of Scientology, but over the years, since I left the base, left Sea Org Scientology, you're always wondering if certain people would ever come out. And, even from Leah to other celebrities in the Scientology world, they were just people to me. But when Leah came out, I knew the impact of her story, but uh, it was incredible to me how well she understood what was at play, which is also further proof to me of what went on the base worked its way down to the civilian world, and particularly the celebrity world. And Leah just so happened to have, as she would say it, the balls to say something. And it was just incredible. It was just like she walked the walk and interacted with everything that I saw and understood. And that was just proof to me how um, the world of Scientology, everybody ends up understanding it the same way and seeing it for what it is. And, it means the world to me that she utilized her connections. I mean, she jeopardized all aspects of her life to stick her neck out. And I'm talking all aspects of her life. I'm pretty certain this was a pretty heavy decision for her to make, to pull the plug of not really concerning herself, of undoing what she worked a lifetime to achieve in her personal goals, which was in the acting world. I mean, it's just like I was a firefighter, or what I do now. That was her line of business of choice. That was her passion, to be an artist, and to be a successful one. Well, just like as a firefighter, I want to be a firefighter. There's a certain art to it, and there's a certain drive of and purpose, and she excelled at it. So she utilized the connections grown from that to have a voice be heard for not only herself and then her family, but everybody else attached to this world in which is called Scientology, and the Sea Org members. It's a very wicked world, as you've obviously, I would say, you've come to some level of understanding. But as much love as I have for Mike and Mark, I have the same level of love for Leah, for Aaron. Um, it's very, these people impacted my life, and continue to do so. And it's actually kind of in a funny thing. It's I don't know. I'm not going to go down that path just yet, but um, I find it important. I'm going to get back to the backbone of what I'm saying. I just find it important to acknowledge people for the impact that they've had on your life, and I love it. Um, it what keeps a smile on my face. It just keeps that, life is actually really good. Contrary to the beliefs of many, but when you get out and start talking to people and interacting with people on a one-on-one, life is really good. It's just all these problems keep constantly get thrown at us to try to divert us from the obvious, which life is good. It just, they make it harder for us, but we still overcome. If you think the shit in today's world is hard, try living as an imp-based staff member. Oh my God. And then try to leave on your own independently. Oh my God. And make independent decisions and detach yourself from it. It's just incredible. So I see that I'm now almost an hour into this rambling video. Um, Here's my notes. I want to give a taste of the stuff that I want to go back. I want to give a backbone in the development of this list that we used to have in the main security booth called the perimeter list, the security list, or the threats list. It was a list of paper that had a list of base staff names on it, in which we gave an extra level of monitoring to people who found themselves in trouble, were on a PTS list or doing lower conditions, um, or situations that were deemed a threat to the base, or staff members who were deemed a threat to the base were placed on these lists. And they remained on these lists until they got through their individual handlings or resolutions. Um, and even if it was a threat, such as we had a drive-by shooting once, that was a security threat and listed right next to Annie Tidman, Annie Broker, who was also a security threat on the security threat list, who remained on the security threat list until she herself was handled. So I wanted to give a history about that and the purpose that it served, and the perimeter council that was developed as directed by L. Ron Hubbard, what that council composed of, the things we discussed, and the type of handlings that we would talk about. Um, I also have access to a lot of OSA files that I've found myself reading. And again, these OSA files bring to view how predictably unchanging the security aspect of the church, the C organization, particularly the imp base, is and was. It just got a whole lot worse. Like I said, there was that wall, and the backbone of security, once that was established, that always would remain. It would just be repainted. The first coat of paint we initially liked, but then found ourselves not liking, so we figure out a new color of paint and paint it over it, only to find that not only do we not like that color, we find out that that type of paint that we use didn't weather up well, didn't hold against the weather too well, or didn't stand up against the weather is what I should have said, too well. So we would redevelop that paint and recoat that wall, and yada yada yada. Over the years, things would change. It would just constantly get repainted, but there was that same wall. We were always in pursuit of making sure that it maintained integrity, stability. It always existed. Initially, we did not want people to realize that there was a wall, and then through our own internal, some internal people, the knowledge about that wall, that actually a wall exists, became known about, and it kind of led to different things. So I hope I just conveyed something that I've been trying to say. Um, Anyways, back to my original thing. I'm literally almost coming on an hour. So I found myself, by viewing all these, in self-realization that I can contribute quite a bit to filling a lot of holes. A lot of holes to either what happened to people, some people that you may have wondered about, where are they now? I I can do a lot of where are they now moments. Just right now you can I'll have a link to my email on my YouTube channel, and you can kick me out an email, and it'll develop into eventually I'll get um, live streams and have people kick questions out to me, and I will be able to help answer questions as to where are they now if I can, or what happened to them, or how they were handled. These OSA files that I was telling you about, oh my God, the things written up in them really show the level of mental anguish that these documents that I read about. I'm going to help convey what it was like to be a SEWRG member and an IMP-based staff member trying to make a proposal to Applebox Boy about how he's holding you accountable for something and responsible for something, and what your solution is for it before he has to step in and do something about it, and making you feel even less and less as a human being. Really incredible how these wall color changes changed consistently and more rapidly, more often. The paint to the wall was changed. So, but yet the wall always existed, and that wall has always never been liked. It was always distasteful. Um, Anyways, yeah. So, what else? What else do I got for you? Oh, and to end this off, I've decided that most, if not all, the stories I'm going to tell you about are pretty goddamn morbid, to say the least. There's going to be a lot of morbid aspects, morbid things talked about. It may start off as a nice bouquet of flowers, but you're going to end up getting down to the moldy, rotten stems at the base of the story that I end up telling you about, and the stinky water. And I'm hopeful that I don't, it's indirectly going to bring you down. Hopefully answer a lot of questions, but I'm gonna work towards ending all my videos with a funny joke. It's either gonna be a, a dad joke, which are in them in themselves are just, they're funny because they're stupid, and their stupidity makes it funny. So they also get you to think, and I love stuff that gets the noodle working. Um, and so I'm gonna, and some of these things, my homework being done and the jokes and all that, some of these things may be mundane. Um, some of them may be adult like. They may be dirty. I'm sorry. I don't care. If you don't like it, then you know you're free to tell me. But the whole intent is to have a good laugh at all this. So I'm gonna try to make an effort to end all my videos with a good joke. So let me see if I can do that for today. Did I give myself uh, the ability to do so? And I was going to try to create a file so I can quickly give reference to it. But let me just... and here's my crude effort in putting together my channel. So... okay, so here we go. Let me get through. I'm not going to do this every time. I'm eventually going to create a file. Oh gosh, you want me to give I don't want that. Sorry, here we are. That's not what I want. Okay, that's why it's because it's that. Okay, so here's a funny one. I only know 25 letters of the alphabet. I just don't know why. You get it? Okay. Or here's another one. I don't trust stairs. They're always up to something. Or here's another one. RIP boiling water. You will be missed. uh, Two peanuts went walking down the street. One was assaulted. Okay. All right. My dog is a genius. I asked him, what's 2 minus 2? He said nothing. You get it? All right. At first, I thought my chiropractor wasn't any good, but now I stand corrected. See, aren't these just fun? Uh, I thought of initially I was just going to do one joke, and now I'm starting to see that I need to have a number of these things because just saying one joke, I think, isn't enough. You got to kind of tell a few of them. So let's see. I'm finding myself having to click stuff without links and spam. All right. When I was a kid, my dad got fired from his job as a road worker for theft. I refused to believe he could do such a thing, but when I got home, the signs were all there. Jesus. All right. All right. A man was driving down the road when a policeman stopped him. The officer looked in the back of the man's truck and said, "Why are those penguins in your truck?" The man replied, "Those are my penguins. They belong to me." "You need to take them to the zoo," the policeman said. The next day, the officer saw the same guy driving down the road. He pulled him over again. He saw the penguins were still in the truck, but they were wearing sunglasses this time. I told you to take these penguins to the zoo," the officer said. "I did," the man replied, "and today I'm taking them to the seaside today." Jesus. Okay. Not sure if I delivered the punchline well on that, but excuse me. All right. Well, let's see. All right. Well, there we go. Too much dead air time. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of the jokes at the end of my video. I'm sorry that there it is. So, I will try to do the best I can to get another one of these kicked out. I'm going to try to do one tomorrow, if not another one this week. But there's my first one, folks. Um, yeah, there you have it. So, kind of crude, kind of rude, which I apologize for. Again, truly apologize to the 280 some odd subscribers I've already have to my channel, yet there's no video to watch. Well, now officially there is one, and I will begin to kick my own butt to get more of these going. All right, so until next time, enjoy the stories. More importantly, enjoy the jokes. And you have yourself a good day. I know I certainly will. Okay, well, there you have it. Bye for now.